I want to know more about your writing process. When the whale first entered your head, or when you first started thinking about the whale for the Tale of the Whale.
Yes, Whale came about 2018 when we started making some changes in the family, becoming a bit more aware of plastic pollution and stuff. So we started to make changes with how I shopped and some of the products we had in the house. Whale kind of came into my head in terms of a conversation, if you like, about all the plastic in the ocean, that there wasn't enough room in the ocean for all this plastic. I think the whale was female at the time in my head, weirdly, and not anymore. So yeah, trying to make it sort of child friendly as well, so that, you know, to throw a big message about plastic pollution out, you need to kind of find a way to do that. And I wanted to kind of, I don't know, talk about how amazing the ocean was and how beautiful and how, you know, majestic, and the things that were in it, and, you know, and then look at the plastic problem that resulted from what's going on at the moment. So to kind of balance it a little bit and sort of say, you know, this is the beauty and the wonder, and hang on a minute, we need to think about caring for the creatures that are in the ocean, really. When you went to draw a whale, did you research about the whales as well when you were doing that?
Well, it was really lovely when I first saw the text, how you brought in that beauty, and it was such a lovely thing to draw. And I did do quite a lot of research to discover what sort of whale it was. And it was obviously the humpback whale, and it was very playful, and it had to have a song.
Because originally the pictures that I'd seen of yours from your website, they had sperm whale in, didn't they?
That's right, yes. I'd done a lot of sperm whales.
I seem to remember we were saying, oh, could it be a sperm whale? And I think we decided that the kids would spot the difference, didn't we?
Yeah, because there's a lot of clever kids out there who know all about whales, and I think that we would be rumbled. But the more I found out about the humpback whale, the more it seemed, yeah, this is definitely the right whale, because, you know, they have the song, they have this leaping out of the ocean, they're very playful. And
the song, I think, was quite important as well, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was an absolute joy to illustrate. You know, it was obvious that you'd absolutely thought about the illustrations while you were writing it.
Trying to make it as visual as well for the children.
Yeah. So it was like, I'm in good hands. I'm in very skilled hands here for my first debut illustration exertion.
The conversation we had early on as well about the eye contact between the child and the whale, because a lot of it was there's a lot of non-verbal communication that goes on in the text between the child and the whale, isn't there?
Yes, and I think that was, you know, that was really helpful, because that's such an important part of the book, is this beautiful relationship between the child and the whale.
So tell me a bit more about techniques you use when you do the picture. How get that sort of level of texture into the pictures? They're beautiful pictures.
Well, it's a combination of two things. One is a sort of technique that I think a lot of people learn at school, which is where you put crayon on the bottom layer, and then you go over it with a darker colour. Then I use a scratch tool to and various other mark making things. And on the MA that I did in children's book illustration at Cambridge, we were really sort of encouraged to experiment. So I kind of experimented using a lot of different types of crayon and oil pastel. The second part of it was that I did a lot of what we call monoprint. Basically, it's ink rolled onto paper, made nice sort of patterns and sort of sea-like textures. And then I digitally, on my computer, I put one on top of the other and worked with the images on the computer.
Did you scan them into
them in? Yeah. I really like kind of scratching into things. I find it easier than having just a blank piece of paper and then making positive marks. I prefer to sort of take things away. Well, you know, put loads of colour on and then take things away. It's a little bit like a sort of sculpture.
Different technique, I think. I think that shows in the pictures as well. You know, they're very different to some of the other things that you see out there, because you know, there's a lot of texture within it.
Well, I think, you know, the natural world is very textured. That's our world that we live in. And I think for a slightly older child, which this book is sort of for the 3 to 8 year old, they're ready to sort of start to explore the world in that way and to see that depth. For me, texture brings more depth, in contrast with quite flat colour and flat pictures, you know, even comic-y kind of stuff. I think texture, it just sort of brings this, in a way, it's like psychological depth as well to images, which I think is quite important to me, to sort of communicate that sort of subtlety in the world.
Do you use any of your mindfulness techniques when you're working?
Not consciously. I mean, I think if you meditate and if you try and live a conscious life, which, I think an ethical kind of dimension to life is a conscious dimension, then that affects everything that you express. Hopefully that communicates itself, a sort of empathy and sensitivity. I just hope if I can sort of invest in those qualities, then that will express itself through the artwork. I think for me what's important, and I think for you as well, is communicating value to children. And not necessarily, I mean, I think what I like about your text, one of the many things, is that it's not preachy. It is this sort of real joy and beauty there, as well as this sad, you have to have both in a way. That's what life is like, isn't it?
Very much so. Yeah, about sort of what you bring to children and what you put before them. And I think it's important that we kind of cover a lot of these sensitive subjects. This is hopefully a text that tries to kind of evoke empathy in others and thinking about how we care for our world and how we share being in it rather than take over in the way that we want to do things. It's about a balance between us and the creatures and things that are within the world. So I think we had a conversation about whether or how you put these subjects to children and discuss them in a way that's allowing them to maybe see what's happening in the world. They're aware of what's going on. Things are on the news all the time. Children experience all these things, and if we can open up conversations about that, then it gives children the chance to discuss and to voice their concerns, and then we can then spend time maybe looking at that and talking about things and coming up with ways that you can make a difference and that the kids can make a difference as well. Each generation, aren't they?
Tell me a bit about yourself and just say something about what happened to make you start writing children's books.
Well, I've always written, I think, is the honest answer to that. And I think, I did A-level English and things at all, and then, English was always my favourite subject. And then I decided as my career that I wanted to be a physiotherapist, so something completely different. Totally focused on that, loved it. I mean, it was what I really, really wanted to do. But at the back of my mind, the writing's always been there. I've always written. Obviously, having children, you start to experience picture books, the wonderful world that they are. It led me into writing more for children and rhyme as well. You see, rhyme's always been there as well. I'm quite a musical person. I think the rhythm of the words in some of the picture book texts that you read, the way that it leads children into reading, the way that you can express yourself through the rhythm and the sounds. I think there's a magical quality to rhythm and rhyme.
You won a competition, didn't you, with this particular text?
Yeah, that's right, back in 2018. So I entered the competition, I think the year before, when it was in the first year of the comp.
What was it?
The writing magazine, Children, is the Picture Book Prize. It's run by Amy Sparks. It's a fantastic competition because there weren't many out there for sort of writers coming up through the ranks. So I'd entered it back in 2017, and I think I got a runner-up at that point, which gave me a lot of confidence. And then I entered it again in 2018, and it was with The Tale of the Whale, and it won. So that led me on from there. I ended up meeting with an agent down in London who mentioned Scallywag Press as part of the conversation. So I kind of looked into that a bit more and discovered what Scallywag did, the beautiful quality of books that they produce, submitted to them, and they finally agreed to take it on.
Yeah. Well, I think they're very pleased. Yeah, and I was delighted to be on the team for it.
They sent the text to you as it was? They just sent it on? And
I had been chatting to Sarah, who's the publisher, because somebody had forwarded my images or something to Sarah. It was Rose Robbins, actually, who already published by Scallywag. So it was one of those sorts of Instagram things, and met up with Sarah and we had a few ideas, and she liked a particular text of mine. But later on, after I graduated, we were talking about this text that she liked, and then she said, "We've just received this lovely text, will you have a look at it? Would you be interested?" And I was very, very chuffed when I read it, because I just found it really moving. Really moving. Yeah, so I signed to do 2 books, and this was the first one. I don't feel I said anything articulate, but you said some really good things. It doesn't matter. Yeah. Okay. Great. That was really fab. And it's really nice to talk to you, actually, and find out a bit more.
Yeah,